I am Jim Collison and live from Omaha, Nebraska, and the Gallup offices in Singapore. This is Gallup's Call to Coach, recorded on January 12th, 2015. Call to Coach is a resource for those who want to help others discover and use their strengths. We have Gallup experts and independent strengths coaches share tactics, insights, and strategies to help coaches maximize the talent of individuals, teams, and organizations literally around the world. If you have questions during the webcast, we do have a live chat room available below the video window. If you're watching live, it's just right below the main video window. Please log in if you can. You can create a guest account, and that's the best way to join us. If you are watching the recorded version, or if you have questions about custom strengths coaching solutions for small, medium, or large organizations, you can contact us. Just send us an email, and this really works for everything, coaching@gallup.com, and you can use the contact page right on the live page that you're at coaching.gallup.com/live. Don't forget to visit the Gallup Strength Center. That's just Gallup Strength Center, all one word, GallupStrengthCenter.com for your coaching resources and training needs. You can also get Strengths Finder codes there as well if you'd like. And now you can catch the video on both streaming and downloadable audio. We've made it super easy to listen to it everywhere, on your phone, in a plane, on a train, in a car. All those things are available for you. Again, the links to do that are available at coaching.gallup.com. Sarv Atri is our host today. He works as a strengths evangelist in Singapore. And Sarv, super great to see you. I feel like I haven't seen you in a couple months because of all the things that have been going on in your life. Welcome back to another Call to Coach.
Thank you so much, Jim. Yes, it's been an exciting last year, and I am really excited about 2015. Is logged in. A very happy new year. Let this year be the best year yet and a year of strengths. So, let's kick it off. Our Call to Coach for Singapore, the first one for 2015, and in series for many more to come. We are excited to have Suman Balani, our guest today. Suman is a leadership coach and facilitator who creates and delivers developmental programs for individuals, groups, and organizations in the Southeast Asia region. She's also a board member of a non-profit organization serving persons with disabilities and currently serves as the executive committee of the International Coaching Federation at the Singapore chapter, leading various initiatives to provide coaching to community to help serve and flourishing of humanity through coaching. I love the purpose and the mission that Suman brings on her coaching style. As a background, she does adopt strength-based philosophy in her work, believing that each person has extraordinary capabilities, and when personal development starts from a place of strength, the impact of the change is exponentially greater. She comes with significant experience with over 20 years in leadership in industries of healthcare, technology, payments. She's worked in the corporate side of things, in corporate strategy development, business operations, strategic marketing, product development, technology innovation. So literally right across a diverse spectrum of a background and experience that she comes across. She holds an executive master's in organizational psychology and coaching and consulting for change from INSEAD Business School. She is certified as an ICF Associate Certified Coach, ACC, Erickson Professional Coach, Gallup-Strengths Coach, Institute of Motivational Learning, Inc. Certified Behavioral and Career Consultant, DISC Personality System, and holds an advanced certificate in training and assessment. She's trained in a variety of process tools, including group process facilitation, fair process, action learning, and immunity to change. Thank you, Suman, for sharing time, taking time out of your busy schedule, and talking to all the viewers logged in live into the Call to Coach series, and also the ones who will be watching the recorded version of this. Without further ado, I would love to have you take on the speaking slot here and start off. We would love to hear from you your strengths journey, and maybe starting off with your top 5.
Thanks, Saurav, and a very happy New Year to everyone on the call. And thanks for this opportunity. I feel so privileged to be the first one in the Singapore series for this year. So my strengths journey started last year when I was talking to a good old friend in the United States, and she told me about how she uh, was sort of having great results within her company, and as I was really inspired to hear her. And the most uncanny thing was I spoke to her like early in the morning. It was a 6 o'clock call for me, and at 9 o'clock when I logged onto my email, there I see this email from Gallup that says we're doing the first trends course in Singapore, and I'm like, wow, this must be for me. So you can hear my connectedness talking. Can you hear that? So it was like I could just feel like the whole thing was meant for me. And so my first is connectedness, and then I have empathy, adaptability, responsibility, and intellection. So these are my top 5.
Great. I love, how your connectedness helps you do the course, and you kind of take it from there on. Let's dive into, you've been coaching previously, to taking the Gallup-Certified Strengths course. How have you kind of incorporated strengths into your coaching practice, and how has it helped you, achieve results?
So, coaching for me is about changing the world one conversation at a time. And the Strengths platform really gets those conversations going. I've also seen them, it's like the glue in an organization. You create a language. And especially now in Asia, where you have so much cross-cultural challenges, with people, you have senior managers coming from Europe and the US, and there are all these other cultural issues that they're facing. So the strengths language becomes a new language to bring the world together, I would say, yeah.
Great.
Especially in this part of Asia.
And we would love to hear a story of maybe an individual or a team of people that you have coached. And if you can share a story in cross-cultural aspect, that'll be fantastic, because it's so relevant in this region, especially with so many expats from around the world coming down and working here. How have you helped an individual in that context?
So, well, quite recently we did this session with this pharmaceutical company. Obviously, it's global, and they are headquartered in Europe. And so they had sent a new manager from Germany down to this part of the world to look after the whole team. And the objective given to us was to, can you get the team together, and I want to do a development plan. But in the conversation with him, it became clearer that he was having really challenges in terms of communicating with each of his direct reports, and that made him begin to feel like, he wasn't sure if he was really doing a good job, and he was very uncomfortable. So what we did was we did a 3-quarter day strengths workshop with about 40 of his top management team, and where we talked about strengths. But what I felt was really useful was that part of it is we took away the senior management team into a private room and allowed these very deep conversations to happen. So, he was looking at everybody's sort of 360s and the past results, because these were people that were now reporting into him, and he couldn't really make sense of the behaviors. So I'll give an example. There was this lady who was always with command, activator, and she also had intellection. So every time she would go, and he looked at her report and he realized that she's really a high achiever, doing really well. But what was happening was she's getting sort of feedback from her staff that she's very task-oriented, very hard on them. And the question was, how could he develop her, and how could he relate to her, right? What was this language? And he realized in the conversations in this small private group that she would do better if he'd given her more time. Every time they have a conversation, she'd say, I'll come back to you, I'll come back to you. And he was wondering, what's wrong? Is this the Asian culture? And no, it wasn't. It was really her. She had intellection. She really needed that time and space. And when he began to understand how intellection really plays out in her, he began to appreciate her a lot more, and she was a lot more comfortable with him. And it was not about discomfort, it was about the way she was, the way she was made. And for herself, it was really a cathartic moment. She started to cry, and when we were asking her why, and she said, you know, all my life, I know I'm a high achiever, and I always get these horrible ratings in my 360. But now I know that I am who I am, which is command and activator, and I can be that. But I also know that I have to manage my strengths so that it doesn't come across too brash. So it was really a very insightful moment, and this being done in a very senior management team was very therapeutic. It really created the rapport and the bonding. So I felt that you know, small group discussion was really great. And the other guy who was in sales, you know, he was also doing very well. But what was happening is there was nobody to develop the second tier sales team, and this is what the German CEO, you know, the CEO from Germany observed, and he wanted to help the sales guy to do it. So when they sat together and started the conversation, we realized that the sales head had very little of was using very little of his individualization and developer, and that he could use more of this, because what was happening was, in that drive to achieve, he was not empowering his people. He was directing people to do their work. And so we were able to use some of these strengths to actually create very strong developmental conversations that were positive and yet had a great sense of reality, you know, which I have not seen in all my 25 years in working life. Usually it's a very strained conversation when you talk about development. So I thought that was really good. So strengths adds this really, shall I say, it's a beautiful positive filter which allows people to have these difficult conversations and really make sense of people's behaviors and why people behave in a certain way. So it creates a great rapport when people begin to understand that. Yeah,
Also,
go
Susan,
ahead.
so when you kind of start these conversations, and some of them could lead into difficult conversations because, you know, in many cases you are helping some of these clients solve their business challenges. It could be working with people, relationships, or just, you know, process-oriented things. How do you initiate these conversations? And a lot of our coaches would love to hear from you on that.
Okay, so obviously in coaching, we want to create a psychologically safe container for people to step out, and we do that by you know, establishing confidentiality, and obviously we start with the strengths, the positive side of the strengths. So we look at contributions. So the way I do it is I would ask them to write one contribution that they make to the team based on one of their top 5 strengths. So they would take a piece, you know, so everyone gets a worksheet and they write this contribution. And then what we do is we flip the sheets around. So we do a round robin, and then the next person then writes what he sees you contributing. So by the end of that cycle, it's really very, it's amazing. So that's one part of the piece of that we do. But the other piece which I also found very interesting was when we start to look at blind spots and the tension that each person brings to the group. So in a similar way, we start with contributions, we set the stage, everybody's comfortable, they begin to speak, and then you begin to go one step further, and then you talk about, where are my blind spots and how are other people beginning to see me? And for a senior management team to sit down and have this conversation, it really is very, very useful, because it just takes away all the conflicts, all the misconceptions, all the misperceptions, and really helps.
Great. And when you structure these conversations that you do, right, do you tell them to take the Strengths Finder beforehand? Do you introduce Strengths Finder to them before taking them through the assessment? Or do you do a coaching session before a team session? How do you structure all those different elements when you're
No,
working with
no.
leaders?
So everyone has to do their Strengths Finder before the workshop, right? And then we do some analysis. So we do a fair bit of analysis by team heads, by the different heads. And so we know what are the talking points for the conversation. And we also always must have a very deep interview with the with the head, basically, to see what his objectives are and where his. Usually, in that very first conversation, you would get a clue to what his real challenges are, and these could be the ones that he articulates, and those that are hidden and not articulated, and that's when it's really important as a coach to see, shall I say, what's below the iceberg. And once you get a sense of that, and then you can make this conversation really very meaningful. Yeah.
Great. So I hear you say that, when you're having these conversations, or when you're doing that analysis, through conversation and through reports, what you're looking for is first, what is the business challenge of that individual? What are, the strengths that they are, and how do they work with people? Is that how you kind of summarize that?
Yeah. Yeah. So in this particular instance, it wasn't so much about, the CEO not knowing how to handle Asia. He was really very good. He's bright, intelligent, etc. It was he had his main challenge was, how do I deal with my people, right? And how do I sort of develop them further? First of all, how do I build a rapport with them, and do they trust me? He needed to hear all these things, right? Of course, in our first conversation, he didn't say it so openly, but we gathered that that's what we wanted. So part of the whole cycle is also to build a gratitude piece, right? So we do the contributions, we do the blind spots and the tension that you bring, and people start to open up and confess how they're beginning to understand how each other works. And then we end off. So you need to really wrap up with the right, with a nice bow tie, because once you open up issues, you want to also close them up. And then we did a gratitude session, and people were in tears. It was amazing. And he was so self-assured, because we knew he needed to hear from his team that, they trusted him, even though he was, from Germany. And they all had a chance to, write one or two sentences of gratitude, and that really wrapped up the whole session very well. So yeah, I think that's a great formula to use.
Brilliant. I love the way you close it in the end with gratitude. From your perspective, what is the biggest insights that you see some of these people take away from the session that you've conducted in the recent past?
For me, I use a whole lot of tools, but what I see in Strengths is people begin to appreciate who they really are, and they begin to accept who they are. So even if they're coming across nasty to other people, etc., the lady with command activator, she cried and cried. She said, all these years I've, in a way, hated myself. And I have this deep guilty feeling, but now that I know I have command activated, this is who I am, and I can really live and accept myself for who I am. Obviously now she's more aware of the conflict and the tension that she brings, but she is who she is, and suddenly people just step out of the room feeling so good about themselves, which is really a gift,
Wonderful.
So, yeah.
Love that, how you are able to help these individuals take on the next steps of building self-awareness and ultimately helping them understand each other and breaking barriers of communication through this language of strengths. Since you've literally ventured on your own of creating your own strengths organization, of coaching organization, what would your advice be to coaches out there who maybe starting their own ventures or already running their own ventures, or even thinking about getting into the venture of their own into coaching? How would what advice would you give them of utilizing strengths in their practice?
Like I said, for me, strengths is a great conversation starter. So it helps to open the door. And then you have to go in and really, use your coaching abilities to really understand what the issues are, etc. And the Strengths Finder is a great tool to start the conversation and get people starting to work. So with this company that we did some work, obviously after the workshop, they want to do a lot more, other leadership development stuff. But we got the ball rolling, and obviously we then the next step is to see how we can install strengths in the whole organization, in a bigger way. But obviously the approach you use there will be more mass-based, not so customized as we did for the senior team, because they would not be able to afford it otherwise. So yeah, it's a door opener. It's a golden key, I would say. Start the conversation. And it's really useful whenever there is conflict and stress in the organization. This is such a nice positive lens that you can sort of, it's like I always think of it like a magic wand. You go there and, just wave your wand and put some positivity into the organization. So it's really interesting, yeah.
Brilliant. Jim, do you have any questions from the audience or from yourself?
Yeah, actually, so Alex out there had asked the question. He says, "What is the greatest challenge that you face in coaching executives and organizations with StrengthsFinder, and how do you address it?"
My greatest challenge? Well, it's been different challenges. What I find in the first 3 sessions is really my first 3 sessions are always not non-challenging because there's so much insight, so much awareness, so much to learn, and they've gone pretty well, I would say. The challenge comes when you want to start holding people accountable and getting them to move forward in using their strengths. And for some people, they can see this very easily, and for others it takes a bit of time. So the strengths journey, I mean, getting it going, having a language, all that really works very well. But at the end of the day, it also depends on the individual. We can only push them to that level, and like with all coaching situations, it's really up to the coachee to take this whole thing forward. Yeah.
What kind of advice would you give to a new coach, someone who's just looking at this for the very first time? I mean, for you, some of it's fresh, but what kind of advice would you give to them when they're thinking about doing this? And you've walked through many of the steps. What kind of advice would you give to them, knowing they're just starting?
So I want to say that, okay, every coaching, every strengths workshop is going to be different. You have a core base to enter, but you need to have that first conversation with the organization to really uncover what's below the iceberg. Because when you hit that, that's when it really brings strengths. That's when the strengths really come alive, because you're hitting at the core of what is needed in the organization. So learn your strengths, be really adept at it, and I think Gallup does a great job with all these other tools that you provide. But you also need to get in there and really understand what the real issues are, and then really use the strengths magic wand to sort of make your way through there.
Some of our coaches are really good at individual coaching. Some of them are good at teams. Some of them are good in the executive space. Where do you find, or what have you found for you? Where's your sweet spot? And it can go across that, but you personally, when you're doing this, maybe it's better to say, what's your favorite group to do when you're, or your favorite space?
My favorite space is the senior executive teams. So I like to work with the head, and I like to work with the core team, because, honestly, nothing gets done without a team. So just working with the senior executive alone is good, but it's not so good. So you also want to see the interactions with the rest of the team. And I really love that session where they go into a room privately, and some of them were in tears because they said, we know these people for 10 years, but we never had such deep conversations. This was our first time that we could actually sit here and, talk about the tension they bring, and also go back to them and say thank you. I really thank you. I really appreciate you being here as part of the team. So yeah, so this is the moments of truth, that emerge.
It really does open some doors at that point, and it's an amazing thing when that does happen and people realize, oh, you don't like, you don't, it's not that you just don't like me, we've never connected in some kind of way, and so it's an amazing thing when that comes together. Because you like that space on the executive level, that's oftentimes for our coaches one of the biggest questions we get on Called to Coach is, how do we overcome that executive resistance when you first are starting to think about this? You're working in that space, and you might get a little, you might either get a little corporate or a little personal resistance from the executive staff that you're really trying to start to work with. Any tips or that you would give to a coach to say when you get to that point? I mean, I think you're going to say be bold and just do it, but what would you, any tips that you would give from that to say approaching that when you come up against that hardcore resistance?
From my experience, having that clear conversation with the head of that group is so important, because if you have him on board, then he's going to play along with you and do the dance together with the group, because here we are trying to uncover, what he wants, and it's really about finding that one single champion within the group, understanding what he really wants and working closely with him or her, to sort of create that environment. At the end of the day, it is a dance,
So, so when you're dancing, what has been the biggest insight, that you have had personally, either for yourself or for other people that you have coached, just when you're dancing with them?
I sometimes am surprised at what happens and the outcomes that come myself. So I'm beginning to believe that there's the sky's the limit, honestly, because I've seen these really incredible reactions and responses, and it's really very satisfying to see how a simple tool that costs 10 US dollars can change someone's life.
Thank you for that wonderful insight, Suman. And for all the coaches out there, in case you're interested to get on a strengths journey for yourselves or for people that you're coaching across, you can be part of our Accelerated Strengths Coaching course. You can become a Gallup-Certified Strengths Coach pretty much across the world. In the region that we have here, in the Asia-Pacific region, we do have courses coming up starting from January, 26th till 30th January is when our Singapore course is scheduled. The seats are almost sold out. We just have 1 or 2 slots open now. The next one is in Mumbai from 2nd February till 6th of February. We have the next course in Hong Kong in March. You can go onto our website, Gallup-Strengthscenter.com, to learn about all the courses that we have in the region, or register for them, or just write to us at my email address, Saurav_Atri@Gallup.com or Gallup-Strengthscenter@Gallup.com. And Jim, do you want to talk more about that?
Yeah, you bet. I'll remind everyone to take full advantage. As you mentioned, that list of all our courses, you might be, these webcasts have a global reach, and so you might be wondering, well, maybe I don't live in Singapore and India, but we have them available in Australia, and a bunch going on here in the United States as well. And they are on a list on the Gallup Strength Center. So again, go to GallupStrengthCenter.com, scroll down, and you'll see a courses box. Just click on it. It'll show you everything that's available to us. As well. Lots of great materials out there. If you're a StrengthsFinder enthusiast and you haven't gone through all the information, we got tons of stuff for you out there as well. Of course, you can always email us your questions, Sarv mentioned those. If you can't remember any of those, coaching@gallup.com is one of those you can get to. So we'll get that back to Sarv if you've got some questions for him. You can also catch all this video, and we do tons of it. We're super excited. Tonight's our first Singapore. We've got one in Australia next Monday and one in India the Monday after that. We're super excited to break those out as well. All that video information is available for you at coaching.gallup.com. You can kind of see the theme here, right, with the coaching and the gallup.com stuff. So if you can't remember that, just remember that, coaching.gallup.com. And we have a brand new meetup page. And so if you're in Singapore, we would really love to have you join. Alex Wong has been doing a fantastic job with the meetups that are going on there in Singapore. And so we'll mention that all the information to join that meetup is on the page. So go to coaching.gallup.com, look for the meetup tab, and that we have some 15 meetups, I think, now all around the world, literally, and we'd love you to become a part of that. If you're a coach and you want to start one in your city, just let me know, and we'll help you get that started as well. And we have all the RSS links and iTunes links now, so you can download these webcasts and listen to them on your phone on the road, as well as we mentioned before, these 3 new Call to Coaches here that are now regional. So we want to say thank you, Sarv. Anything else before I wrap it?
I just want to second that. So I've actually been to one of the meetups that Alex has organized here, and it's a fantastic forum for people starting into strengths to really go in and learn about some of these strengths terminologies, to really get started on things. And like I said, Alex is a fantastic person as well, so you get to learn a lot from him. And also for people who are dialed in or watching this later on, if you want to reach out to Suman Balani, you can either write to us, or you can even log on to our coaches directory on our website, GallupStrengthsCenter.com, and you can all the bio and detail of Suman are right there. So definitely you can write to her or to us, and we'll be happy to connect you to forward. On that note, thank you so much, Jim. Thank you so much, Suman, for coming down, taking time off your schedule to really talk to all the people that are dialed in live and people watching it later in the evening. Some great insights, and wishing all of you a great year ahead. Like I said, let this year be the year of strengths and the best year yet. Thank you.
And with that, we'll say good night. Thanks for coming out.